Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Piyush Malik. I lead the Silicon Valley chapter of ASEI. And I really want to thank you for taking time on this holiday weekend and joining us for this discussion. I hope amidst this pandemic, you're all healthy and safe. A bit about ASEI for those who are guests and not know much about ASEI. American Society of Engineers of Indian Origin is an organization of engineers and technical professionals of Indian origin, which was established in 1983 in Michigan. And since its inception, ASEI has strived to strengthen Indo-American relationships, channel communication between technical organizations within the US and abroad, and lend a helping hand to charitable organizations and provide assistance to engineering students at the local and national level. And of course, we organize networking events for knowledge sharing and opportunity sharing as well. Now, ASEI is the best kept secret in the Silicon Valley. It has 6 chapters focused on various areas. In the Silicon Valley, we have strived to focus on STEM programs and partnered with various organizations, initially such as IBM and Synopsys, to serve the budding engineers and students with an exposure to opportunities for job shadowing, internships, opportunities, and so on and so forth. And of course, providing career guidance and mentoring to members. Now, coming to today's topic, just a housekeeping. If there are questions, please type in the chat window and we'll get to those questions. The format today is that we have our moderator who will introduce each speaker, and then after each speaker has spoken for 5 minutes each, then we'll get into Q&A session, and then everybody will be able to ask their questions, and between myself and the moderator, we'll get to it. So just to set the context here, everyone knows education is a great equalizer, and thanks to internet and advanced technologies, we now have the ability to get educated from anywhere in the world, especially this COVID era, right? Education technology is a term, for those who are not familiar, to describe the industry that combines education on one hand and technological advances on the other hand. So the conventional landscape of education thereby gets totally transformed because of it. And it not only allows education institutions to serve a larger and more diverse audience, but also enables educational participants, be it teachers or students, to foster relationships in an interactive fashion. And of course, it scales and it can get to any part of the world. Though we are all affected by COVID and we are tired of Zoom and all the webinars, but this topic should be very interesting because the EdTech market size is was projected earlier to be growing above 9% per annum, and it's a $50 billion market in the US itself. But what are the solutions, and what do we see here? I mean, people may be familiar with Coursera and Khan Academy, who were the early trailblazers in this space, but where is the industry headed now? And so for today's session, we have 3 distinguished speakers from the EdTech industry who will enlighten us and share what opportunities exist for us engineers. And as I said, all are muted, should be muted except the speakers. And let me now, without much further ado, introduce and welcome my friend Amrish Chopra, who is one of the newest life members of ASEI, and he is serving on the ASEI Silicon Valley Board of Directors, and he is here to moderate the session. Take it away, Romy.
Hey guys, thank you. Welcome to this is EdTech seminar, webinar, I guess. Let me introduce the panel that we have. So let me start with Dr. Preetha Ram. Dr. Preetha Ram, she has experience in traditional university system as well as enabling technology in the field of education. She was before Dean of Emory University. Then she went on to start an educational technology company, which was later acquired. She's currently working as a venture capitalist at Pier 70 Ventures, specializing in investments in the education technology field. Welcome, Dr. Preetha Ram.
Thank you, Amrish.
Let me set the slide up. Yep. Hopefully you can see my slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amrish, and thank you, Piyush, for giving me this opportunity. People always ask me, why, after being many years in the education business, why venture capital? And I tell them both businesses invest in the future. Whether as an educator, you're investing in young minds, or as a VC, you're investing in young startups. Both of them are thinking about the future. So I'm hoping today, even though we're in such gloomy surroundings, we will be thinking about the future. And my goal really is to set the stage for some of the future forward initiatives that we're going to talk to you a little bit about. First and foremost, as we all know, a crisis changes everything. Whatever we took for granted is no longer going to be there. And many things are going to change. Unfortunately, we don't know which. So here's a quote. It's not only the most intellectual of species that survives, is not the strongest that survives, but in fact, one that is best able to adapt and adjust. So let's take a look at what's happening to the education landscape. And I'll lead off with my perspective, thanks Amrish, as an educator in the business for the longest time, as a faculty all the way up to dean. So there is a crisis going on right now. And like in many industries, in the education industry, it's particularly been hit hard. So if you ask yourself, why has it been hit hard? Well, education, whether it's higher education or to a lesser extent K through 12, is an enrollment heavy industry. It depends upon enrollments. If you look at the graph on the side over there, you'll find that the revenues of institutions, and these are higher ed institutions, as a percent of the total educational revenue for the US, and I don't know if you can see this, but for the US, that's a green line. The average is about, go back, Amrish.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to zoom in. But
for the US, the average is about 46%, but across the different states, 46% is a lot, as you would imagine. You're all business people, you understand this. So what that means is the bulk of the education revenues is coming from enrollment. When enrollment drops, tuition revenues drop. What happens? So what's going to happen is it's going to affect different institutions differently. The top ranked colleges, private and public, they have a lot of endowment, they will make it. The middle ranked private colleges, if they have good endowments, they'll be fine, but if they don't have deep pockets, a few of them, some of them will survive, we don't know how. It all depends upon how innovative they are. The middle ranked public colleges, the lower ranked private colleges, they're all going to see problems. And a case in point is the Penn State system, 20% decrease in enrollment already. Projected losses are 260 million. And so just that, a very vulnerable old system is going to be in trouble. Amrish? Thank you. So when we think about the impact of this on our lives, and as we look to the future, I have a college rising junior waiting to go back in fall. I think there are 3 different scenarios that futurists have predicted that I think will roll out as far as higher ed institutions are concerned. The first scenario is actually, the pandemic fizzles and fall semester is back. It'll be face-to-face. And I ask myself, why did I do this in red? I think it's because it is a risky strategy. It's a risky health-wise, and all of us as parents, as students will have to ask ourselves the impact of that on our health. But a couple of universities have already started to push forward on that. I got a letter as a parent from Georgia Tech saying my son will go back in fall. The University of Southern Carolina has also said it's going to be open for face-to-face instruction. Scenario number 2 is the pandemic lasts through 2021. We're going to see that fall semester is definitely virtual, and UC systems have already declared that. The California State University systems have also declared that, and that's going to be primarily online, perhaps blended. Scenario 3 is a more tricky one where it looks like it's going to get better, and then it doesn't, and then you go back and forth. So things may open face-to-face, and then they have to close again. So I call that the toggle semester, and campuses will be switching between virtual, blended, face-to-face. What all of this means, it opens up the opportunity for disruptive innovation. What does that look like? Amrish? I think what we're going to see is EdTech is literally going to run to the rescue. So we as investors, as Pier 70 investors, are investing in some of these technologies kind of heavily because we see their application in not only education, but the future of work, the future of learning, in upskilling, skill force development. So what are some of these technologies? Definitely AR, VR, immersive learning, for example, Labster, and I've seen those very amazing VR glasses that will help you manipulate chemicals in the lab and microscopes. So that sort of a thing is going to take off. Interplay learning, Niantic labs, your kids all know Pokemon Go, they're now investing in AR in education. AI, adaptive learning, there are a slew of startups early on that weren't doing too well. In this era, like Newton, but the new ones, you know, the latest unicorn, Quizlet, is now looking into adaptive learning for tutoring, Kidaptive, Quarium are three other examples, robotics, and we're going beyond Lego Mindstorms. They will be definitely used for more applications. And blockchain applications, you're going to see, that's particularly interesting in the view of professional development, transferable credits. How do you take something that you did at one place, perhaps at Udacity, and then go on to another place? So here's an example of some of the new technologies on the horizon. And as my 5 minutes comes to an end, I want to leave you with some of these thoughts, Amrish. So as I said earlier, a crisis creates opportunities. So what are some of these opportunities that we are seeing, I'm seeing either as an educator, as an EdTech entrepreneur, or as an investor? I mean, definitely we're all seeing that online dominates, but I think we're going to see a difference. We're going to see a departure from Zoom everywhere. You know, we've got hundreds and thousands of kids sitting in front of Zoom cameras right now. It was a start, and we had to do this because it all happened very quickly. But over time, over the 3 months, we're going to be able to, institutions are going to be able to take a quick, hard look and start innovating. But at the end of the day, the message is you will be able to take courses from anywhere. And I'm glad that I'm being followed by Rohit, who'll talk about some of his, about his university. But think about it. You could be here and you could take a course from Cambridge University, or Oxford, or wherever you wish. So keep that in your mind. The second is the value of a degree will be questioned. It's a financial question. It's a question, now that I don't have the ability to send my son or daughter to campus so he can, you know, hang out and build social connections that will help him get his next job, should I be paying $70,000 a year? Good question, should be asked, and different people will make decisions differently. But at that point, what that means is the skill credential, the value of the skill credential will go up. And so I'm glad we've got Narendra to talk about that right now, and Udacity and their nano degrees. And the last two I want to think about, and I want you all to think about, is what I'm also seeing is a stronger interplay between industry and institution, where you have, and particularly because today universities are hard-strapped for cash, what if we had collaborations like a Google MIT, like a Facebook, maybe Berkeley, and things like that? So how will that impact us? How will that impact the education, the opportunities, the job development, particularly today when there's 36 million, unemployment numbers are at 36 million. And finally, here's where the business opportunities lie. Technology adoption, which has always been slow in higher ed, will skyrocket. Kind of like Zoom one day was a no-no, and then it became the favorite child. So business opportunities are going to skyrocket. And if I were thinking of doing new things or figuring out how I can use my skills to grab an opportunity, this is where I would do. I would look for a combination of some of the technologies I talked about and the market gaps that exist and put them together. So on that, thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer questions later on. Back to you, Amrish.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's a lot of stuff to think about, but it's a great overview of, you know, from the traditional university to what's coming up next. So thank you again. So next up we have is Rohit. Rohit is currently the Vice President of Technology Operations at Zovio. Zovio is an education services company based in San Diego, California, and it owns one accredited university called Ashford University Online. This university offers associate, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs in more than 50+ degree program online. So this is all university online. There's no campus to go to. Besides Ashford, Zovio also runs a full academy stack company, which is focused on coding skill set and TutorMe. Rohit is responsible for technology operations and has a great view regarding how to offer traditional education using only online environment. Welcome, Rohit.
Thank you, Amrish. Thank you for having me, for you and Piyush. And I also want to thank Preetha for giving a great overview of the current industry and the challenges that we have, which nicely segues into the things I'm going to talk about. So when we look at the industry as of today, there are a lot of challenges that are facing both the students as well as the schools. Like the first challenge for the student is finding the right school, the right program, and the right course. So we all know about Harvards and the Berkeleys and the Stanfords of the world, but how good are their online versions of the program? The value we attach to a degree from Harvard may not be the same value that we'll put on their online degree. So finding the right school, the program, and the course becomes really important. The next thing that students will have to deal with is technology. So access to high-speed internet, laptop, and distraction-free environment we take for granted for a lot of the privileged kids that we have. But for those who are not as fortunate, the differentiation between having access to these tools is huge. So as we get more into the technology-driven industry, those kids will become a lot more disadvantaged than the privileged ones. So the gap is going to continue to increase. Then the next set of challenge for the students is how do they adapt to the online learning? So online learning is very different than the in-person learning. So you are by yourself on your own, kind of feeling isolated. You may thrive very well if you are more of a outgoing person in an in-person environment, like in school setting, a traditional school setting. But when you are online, you might become a totally different person. And the vice versa is also true. You might be very introvert and very shy of speaking out. In an in-person setting, you may not do as well. But in online, in the social media kind of environment, you might be very well connected and very active. So online learning is also similar to that. There's a lot of pros and cons, so students will have to adapt to that challenge. Couple of more things that come to my mind is how to keep the students engaged and motivated. One of my friend's son was attending a school in New York. Last semester, he was very, very busy. He hardly had any time to talk. They were telling me the stories. And this semester, he's back home doing it virtually, and he is almost all day by himself, like for himself, and doesn't have much to do. So it becomes very hard for students to keep engaged and motivated to keep doing things because they kind of feel isolated as well. So it takes a lot of time management and discipline. Same thing as working remote. I think those skills of having discipline, when to start, when to stop, become very important. So on the school side, we have similar challenges. Like because of the COVID, a lot of K-12 education had to convert online almost overnight basis. So they had to convert their classes to their online version of the courses, which was very challenging. For the teachers, they don't have a captive audience anymore. Like in the classroom setting, they have kids who have their full attention, but in an online version, the kids are dispersed. They don't start and stop at the same time. They might have different start and stop times. So for the teachers, it becomes really important to how to use the tools and technology to keep the students engaged. So training the faculty to be able to be proficient in those tools is also important for the schools. Then on top of it, finding the right tools, like Zoom became an overnight hit, and then all of a sudden there were a lot of privacy concerns being raised of that, and then people were kind of switching back and forth between Zoom and Google Hangout and a lot of other things. So finding the right tool which has the right means to offer these communication and collaboration between the students becomes very important. Also, as we get into the online testing, preventing plagiarism and cheating, that will also become challenging for the schools. Having the right help desk and support systems for online students to resolve their issues, that also takes a lot of importance in an online setting. And lastly, the whole value proposition of the school has to be redefined. Like I was saying earlier, we all value the degree from Harvard, but how much will we value the online degree from Harvard? How will they differentiate between a community college online versus Ivy League online college? So redefining the value proposition for the schools is also going to be a challenge going forward. So thank you, Amrish. So a lot of these challenges also lend themselves to become opportunities of the future. Like on the teaching side, the learning and collaboration tools, having the right set of tools is really important. The tools which have discussion boards, group participation, peer-to-peer interaction, a lot of those features are getting rapidly evolved. Also, developing the right content for these online versions is going to be very important. Like in a classroom setting, the content might not be that relevant because you're following a book and all the kids are following along. But in an online version, you have to develop some engaging and rich interactive content with multimedia so that the attention is retained. Along the same lines, the performance and assessment testing. In a classroom setting, you can proctor the test. You can make sure that kids are honest and following the rules. But in an online version, it's very hard to implement. So having the tools which can automatically find plagiarism and those kind of things becomes very important. And lastly, the online tutoring. In a classroom setting, kids can go and ask the teachers. They can reach out after hours and get those questions answered. But with an online setting, every kid is learning at their own pace, at their own time. So having access to tutoring, on-demand tutoring becomes really important. So on the administration side, similarly, maintaining the recruiting levels, maintaining the right amount of students also becomes challenging. Student engagement and retention is also going to be a challenge because people are going to be distracted. A lot of students are going to be working at home with a lot of distraction from the internet and TV, and it's very hard to engage them and retain their attention. So getting that going is also going to be very important. So developing content with gamification and those things becomes even more important now. So curating courses and content. So there's a lot of content available, like free content on YouTube or other low-paying content like in Udemy and Udacity. How do you differentiate between a quality content which is available maybe at a lower price versus at a higher price? That becomes also an opportunity. And lastly, business intelligence reporting. Since a lot of learning is going to be happening online, it will collect a lot of data as well. So mining through the data, getting the insights, that also becomes an opportunity. So what we are seeing as far as the current trends at Ashford and Zovio. So Ashford has been an online university. It's pretty established. So as people are forced to get to the online, we are seeing higher enrollment numbers because people are looking for schools that have well-established online programs. Also, traditional colleges which don't have a lot of online presence are reaching out to us to convert their existing courses to online. Also with the recruitment and retention, we have a lot of internal tools that we have developed over the last few years. And those tools have become very important, and a lot of other universities are asking to partner with us so that they can leverage those tools. So with that, I'll hand over back to Amrish.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much, Rohit. Yeah, and yeah, very good. Since you've already doing online university, so it's sort of you were ahead of the curve in a way, like everybody's trying to get to an online university. And to your point that, hey, you have same online degree from Harvard or from a community college, how do you differentiate the quality? Because this could be the same textbook, same curriculum, it's just a different way, different organization. So anyway, thank you very much, Rohit. We'll talk soon. Next up I have is Narendra. Narendra is Global Head of Business at Udacity. And Udacity is actually an educational startup unicorn. I think they're worth over $1 billion. And Udacity provides focused education and skill training for students from all areas. So as head of business, Narendra has, they've pioneered the concept of nano degrees, which are highly focused and specific training for certain skills. So currently, Udacity is also partnered with traditional universities to provide a hybrid approach to education. As head of business, Narendra has a bird's eye view of what skills are needed by industry. Welcome, Narendra.
Great, thanks, Amrish, and thank you, Piyush as well, and also thanks to Preetha and Rohit for a great conversation so far. So, I'm going to share a slightly different perspective from what Preetha and Rohit have shared, and that is more from a standpoint of industry. Right? I mean, Udacity has been, as a company, we started out doing online education, but I think we started realizing that more and more like industries are looking for certain skills, certain talents, and how do we bridge the gap between what people learn in academia to what the industry needs. That kind of, was the mission of Udacity. So, but before that, let me kind of spend some time on, what we see as the problems of the future. I mean, this is not Udacity's viewpoint. This is, from World Economic Forum, from McKinsey and a few others. And this is actually pre-COVID data. So pre-COVID era data. So if at all anything, this is probably much more exacerbated right now. So, per the reports and analysis, like more than 800 million jobs will be lost due to automation by 2030, right? And over 375 million people will need to change their jobs over the next 10 years. Like I said, this probably is maybe double, triple based on what we're seeing, thanks to COVID in the mix here. So there'll probably be, 1.2 trillion spent on digital transformation, right? I mean, this is 2019 and, 2020, this will be probably looking at 1.6, 1.7 trillion spent on that. And, when we go to enterprises around the world, Udacity, we sell to a lot of Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, and talent shortage is the #1 risk to organizational change. So let's move forward. So, these are some of the jobs that are at risk, like the 800 million, maybe billion jobs that are going away. Cab drivers, we already see a lot of this happening. Pilots, accountants, journalists, doctors, lawyers, bankers, QA testers. I know some of you here are engineers who probably are like wondering whether QA testing will really go away. Yes, it is one of the jobs that's going to go away to automation, right? So it's it's long story short, there's a ton of things that are, there's a ton of jobs going away. There's a sea change that's happening. And, so I just want to bring in a little bit of perspective from Udacity as to why we kind of look at this. The two gentlemen that you see in this picture here, one is Sebastian Thrun, is the founder of Udacity, and the other gentleman is Peter Norvig, I think is the research director at Google. And this was kind of the foundation of why they started Udacity. So I think in 2011 or 2012, Sebastian taught an online course on artificial intelligence, and he had like around 160,000 people enrolled in the course. And Sebastian, by the way, is a professor, is an adjunct, is an associate professor at Stanford University as well, and so is Peter. So they did this course, they had 23,000 learners complete the course. And their aha moment was when, out of the 23,000 people who completed, 412 students were ranked higher than the top Stanford student. So I think the aha moment was, I think the other speakers had alluded to this earlier, was that, the thing is, not everybody has the opportunity, but talent and skill lies everywhere, right? So Udacity's mission was to actually take that, it was to hone people's talent and skill and democratize, upskilling, or democratize bringing practitioner level skills to the whole world. So that was Udacity's approach. Let's move forward. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but essentially, I mean, like there are a lot of these online training camps, there's boot camps, there's university, and then Udacity, we specifically focus on what we call as a nano degree, which is practitioner level skills. Like you actually learn. Now I'll just share a little bit more about what I mean there in the upcoming slide. It's highly scalable and it's not very expensive, right? So that has been Udacity's focus. I mean, that's been our mantra. We have over like 10 million students who enrolled in our various courses and offerings. And like I said, we're probably there in about 60 to 70% of the Fortune 500. Our program, like Amrish said before, is the nano degree program. It's anywhere between, like if you're working, it takes between 3 to 4 months to complete the program. And we actually have around 45 different nano degrees that we offer right now in artificial intelligence and cloud and data science and self-driving cars and so on. And we take a very different approach to, we actually call it as our own, we call it our pedagogical approach to learning. And we've seen that this works very well, not just in industry, but also a lot of students. I mean, more than, I'd say like Amrish was saying, Udacity is a unicorn, right? And we have a significant amount of revenues, and more than 50% of our revenues come from students who are actually at university and looking for more education. So let's move forward. So like what we just in terms of how we do this online, there's an immersive curriculum. It's hands-on learning, it's interactive content, and it's measurable progress. It's supported, like, yes, it is online, but you also have a support network of mentors and reviewers and career coaches. And last but not the least, which I think is the most unique aspect of Udacity, is its real world projects. What you see here on the screen is actually from our self-driving car nano degree, right? This is like maybe when you're 50% in through the course, you actually will be asked to design these lane changing mechanisms, identify various things on the, like identify obstacles and so on. But before you complete our nano degree, I love sharing this because, Udacity lays so much importance on upskilling people and bringing practitioner level skills. Like for example, if you're to graduate from our self-driving car nano degree, when you're about 80 to 90% through the nano degree, you have to send us code, and we program our self-driving car called Carla. And Carla has to clear an obstacle course before you can graduate, right? So that is, I'm just sharing this as an example because that is what industry is looking for. Industry, our experience with industry shows that, gone are the days where, you're a name of a university or a pedigree gets you in. Yeah, maybe it gets you in the door, but in terms of, what employers are looking for, they're looking for very targeted focus skills, right? And in the context of education, right, like upskilling, practitioner level skilling is turning out to be super important. And especially, like Udacity, we've historically worked with the industry, but in the last few months, also with COVID, we started working with universities, and universities are also starting to realize that, bringing practitioner level skills with some form of a blended learning, like how the other speaker said, where there's maybe asynchronous online education mixed with synchronous online, or when universities open up, pure offline education as well. So, and like I said, a lot of our content is built with industry partners, a ton of partners here. So thank you. Thanks for that. I know I'm out of time, but just thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Narendra. Yeah, it's a very good idea. I think it's very specific, targeted industry. Sort of like industry figures out this is what we need, and Udacity comes and fills up that need. It's go ahead, Piyush. You wanted to do a poll?
Sure. We are midway through this, and in fact, we have a good number of attendees. I just wanted to get an idea as to who all are in the audience here. And if you can take 10 seconds to respond, I'll keep it open for 10 seconds, and then we want to figure out if we have guests more or we have members more today. So 50% of the people have responded. I need responses from others. I hope you're not sleeping. All right. One more second before we launch into the next one. Okay, we have kept it open for 30 seconds. I don't think we have more time. So whoever has responded so far, I will capture those and share those results. So we have a good mix. I'm not sure if you can see, we have 57% current members and about 40% guests. So I'll stop this. And then I would say, well, I'll reserve my next till the last. So I think we should get into the panel discussion. Romy, take it away.
Yeah, we have tons of questions from the audience also, so I won't take too much time. So I think one of the questions that came up, I was reading an article in 2000. I think Clayton Christensen, who was a Harvard business professor, and he had actually written an article in 2011 saying, he has seen the light how the 10 to 15 years, 50% of the U.S. universities are going to go out of business. And Preetha mentioned that earlier because COVID has sort of like accelerated that process. And the panel is actually now sort of in that next level where, yes, they may go out of business, but there's other opportunities. So I wanted to leave it open to the panel to sort of discuss like, okay, is that true? And how do we sort of move forward from that universities going out of business plan? Anything, Preetha?
Yeah, sure. I can lead off on that. Historically, the university system is several centuries old. So it's time. A lot has not changed. And so, as I said, when you have a crisis of this nature, then it really causes a shakeup. So I think, yes, many universities and colleges that exist today will not exist tomorrow. That is absolutely, everyone can probably agree on that. What we probably can't agree is what is the nature of what tomorrow's university or college will look like, right, if at all. I still feel bullish that some universities and colleges will survive because a lot of people will believe that they have value to give, that some people will resonate with that value. But I think the field is wide open for new business models, new thought on what the values could be and how others in this area could bring that value. So it's a yes, yeah, and maybe.
And Rohit, I think you guys are already online, and Narendra, you guys are sort of building the next university model. The other question was that the COVID-19 has actually now impacted the universities. Has the enrollment increased in Rohit or Narendra in your?
Yeah, so enrollment numbers are picking up really fast for Ashford in particular, because we are kind of seen as an established player, similar to University of Phoenix, with the second largest established university online. Right. So the enrollment numbers over the last couple of months have gone up really fast compared to last year. Okay. And then, as students are looking for more established universities in the online space, I think more and more will prefer the established online universities. Okay. So it's looking good for us, but on the other side, for the brick and mortar universities, it's looking bad because as they convert to online, the expectation that the students have with respect to the fees and the tuition cost is way down. And at the same time, as their enrollment numbers go down, they have and more need to bridge that gap and increase the tuition rate. So it's kind of stuck in the middle and squeezed from both ends.
Yeah, I mean, I just had somebody of her relatives, her nephews coming to US for education and in the fall, and they were told that it's going to be online, but pay the full fee. And they were like, why should we pay the full fee? Right? I mean, if you're going to do it online, I can do it in India. I don't need to be there.
Yeah.
save the money, right? Right. So, and Narendra, I'm sure, I mean, you were talking about that AI, you have so much demand for that.
Absolutely. Since COVID has started, I mean, there's been phenomenal increase in demand for Udacity. And not just that, but also, I mean, like large universities, I mean, it's still too early for us to announce the partnership, but, we're actually partnering with one of the very large local California universities to bring both, like our skills-based training, which is asynchronous online plus, some level of instruction from the university and offering programs. So yes, clearly, I think it's this huge, what shall I say, people are, like one of the primary objectives why people want good education is they look at it as more favorable for better career outcomes, right? So I think right now, I think given what Preetha said, what Rohit said, like in general, the trend is veering towards, let me get the best possible skills training that I can, right? And then, I think whether it's in a university, whether it's online, whether it's in a platform like Udacity, to be honest, probably will start becoming less and less relevant over time. Because most companies these days are pointing in, okay, I need to find the best machine learning engineer in the world. Doesn't matter if it's from Harvard, Stanford, Ashford, Udacity, wherever it is, right? So they're looking for skills. So, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Amrish, yes, there's been a huge spike in demand, and I think it's only going to increase more and more. This is a tectonic change in the landscape of education, in my opinion.
And I think you were mentioning that AI for healthcare, you guys started, there's like 20,000 people showed up at the inaugural.
That's right, yeah. So we did this virtual conference like literally 10 days back, and it is our first ever virtual conference. We'd never done something like that, and it was we had built this nano degree on AI for healthcare. We had around 20,000 attendees worldwide, and we had Eric Topol, who is he's ranked amongst the top 10 physicians in the whole world, and maybe amongst the top 2 or 3 in America. He was the keynote speaker for that, and there's great. I mean, it's just a sign of like what I mean. At some level, the idea there was healthcare, but it was also to see like what does the next wave of healthcare look like? What does the next wave of innovation look like in the healthcare industry? And it was great. It was a really awesome event.
Awesome. The other question I have for the panel was, I took one of the classes, and the guy, I said, where did you learn that? He said, University of YouTube. And so how would you differentiate, what you get free education on, say, YouTube videos or cheaper, and how do you, quantify even Udacity? I mean, I know it's not expensive, but it's still some amount. And then online university, and how would you differentiate? Like, okay, I can learn this on YouTube. Why do I need to pay $1,000 at Udacity, for example, right? So
great question. So let me answer that. See, Udacity's methodology, I'm sure same is true for Ashford and other places. It's not about just watching videos and it's not just passive learning, right? Udacity as a platform, I think we've gotten where we have because it's 80% doing and 20% learning. When I mean 80% doing, like you actually, like I gave you this example of the self-driving car. If Carl, our self-driving car, cannot clear the obstacle course with your code programmed into the car, you ain't graduating. So it's all about doing stuff, and that is what, like, it's the same thing, right? You can watch all videos you want, you can do everything, but till you go and do a real world project. Our projects are modeled with industry partners. I know somebody else had asked me the question, how does Udacity work with industry? We actually, we interview the Fortune 1000 companies. We look at their profiles for a machine learning engineer. We actually look at the top 4 skills that they want. Then we work that backwards. We put 4 projects to test those 4 skills, and then we work backwards and build course curriculum. So our approach is very different from a traditional educational approach. It's all about you learn the skill and you work backwards and build content which will help you learn the skill.
Yeah. And it's more like real-time stuff, whatever the need is in the current market, and then you can adapt to that. Right?
Yeah.
Preetha, since you were, go ahead.
I'm actually going to say that the marvelous thing about, there's something just amazingly marvelous about what Udacity is doing, but because if you think about it, the content of the world is available, and if everybody could just read a book or 2 or 3, and that's what YouTube is, content consumption, and know enough to go and get a job and actually do what needs to be done, we wouldn't need universities, would we? So what Udacity has managed to do, and that's why they're doing so well compared to all the other universities, is that they managed to figure out how to transfer these skills so that people can actually go and practice them. So that gap between content absorption in a sort of a passive way and getting on the job and using whatever you've learned on a job in a way that's reliable and dependable and you can keep doing it is very difficult. And a lot of universities fail in doing that. And it's at the top of what's been a lot of discontent. Before COVID came, people were talking about how universities are not doing their job and people are graduating and not able to get jobs. And Udacity was doing well right there. I mean, even before COVID came. So it's hardly surprising to me that they would continue to, and it's not just Udacity. I mean, yes, Naren, you're here on the panel, But other, companies like Udacity that are able to do this really well should continue and actually flourish in an environment like this. Because at the end of the day, as someone said, I don't know if it was Amrish or if it was Naren, it's about getting a job and being a productive member and bringing home, a paycheck. And whatever helps you get there is going to be what's popular for a lot of us. So.
Right. I mean, and to that point, I think Zovio, Rohit, they have also started, like a tutoring company on the side, which is Tutor Me, I guess. And Preetha is familiar with all the tutoring online, because that's another way of sort of reaching out to the students.
So actually, Tutor Me was a separate company which started by a couple of people in California. We just acquired it last year as we saw a lot of growth in the online tutoring before even COVID came along. And Tutor Me is a totally separate entity, even though it's fully owned by Zovio now. But they have partnerships with a lot of universities where they provide on-demand tutoring. So I think that space is also expanding, almost growing at 50-60% annually. And that's very exciting. And COVID will basically accelerate that even more.
Yeah, another question I had is like, from all your perspective, right? What areas do you think is not currently served by current technology in education? I mean, there's all sorts of fields, but is there some place that technology could come in and provide improvements or enhancements to whether it's online or whether it's whatever way to deliver the education? Is there something we were missing? Something that's not there or could be enhanced?
Can I just take, there was a question there about that, and someone asked about social skills and networking skills. Right. And it's kind of why we send our kids to college, so that they can physically learn how to do this and they can use that in their job, because we all know, as professionals, that a lot of it comes from having those skills. So what I see as a gap in a lot of these online, and I don't know if it's in Zovio or in Udacity, but I see a need for an EdTech solution to solve that problem. How do you teach students, these kinds of social skills, these networking skills, these collaboration, team working, team problem solving skills, and then how do you assess that? So I think that's an area that I would love to see some innovation on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there was an article written by a Princeton professor, and the same question came up: hey, why do I need to do 4-year degrees anymore? And his answer was, basically the 4-year degree is a signal to a future employer that you can work hard and sustain for 4 years. It's not about just the content learning. It is more than that. Yeah, content is there, but it's also the fact that you can suffer through 4 years of college to get through and get your education. And it is an interesting point of view. It's like, okay, it's not just about content, but it's that plus that. And how do you combine that online? It's going to be the next challenge. Like maybe we can do both and figure out. Anyway,
hey, Piyush.
You have a lot of questions from the audience, so I'll let you.
And given we have 10 minutes left, we'll try to cover as many questions as possible. But I obviously had this question come up that we've been talking about from a learner's perspective. We've talking about how EdTech industry is going to be disrupted from a academics perspective, and will academia lose its shine, and what will it impact to the research as such? And I think Preetha is the best person suited to answer that.
I think, as I said in the chat as well, I think research will continue, because you need research. Everyone needs, you need research, because that's the innovation engine. That's where America's, solid performance, I don't want to say supremacy, but what America does best has come from the fact that it's supported very broadly innovation that comes from research that comes in universities. So I think that's going to continue, and in fact, I think it'll actually do much better. So once that research engine keeps chugging in universities, that'll provide some of the support for universities and some of the revenues as well. So I think research will get, and not only in universities, but in all the research labs and all that should be supported and should see a rise, an uptick?
Great. Another question that I see, thank you, Preetha, for that. Another question I'm seeing here is, given the closing gap in online is merely providing a Chromebook and internet connection, why is this a challenge as compared to financing a 300K 4-year expense? And can somebody describe how the structure of an online university in terms of who is employed by them and their roles will differ from a traditional university going forward?
Rohit?
Yeah, sure. So I think the structure of an online university is different in the sense that there are some traditional teams that are across the board found in the traditional university as well. So the enrollment teams that recruit the students, the registrar team that and basically validates the credentials and all those things are still there in the online university as well. Where it totally differentiates from the traditional university is the faculty. The faculty are totally dispersed. They might be all over the world, if not in the all over the US. They might be the best in their fields. They not be working full time, but taking 1 or 2 classes or 1 or 2 courses per semester. So I think the number of faculty that an online university has on their staff is a lot more, probably a factor of 10 or even more than a traditional university. So those are the key differences. The courses are still time bound, as opposed to Udacity or Udemy or some of these online platforms where you can learn at your own pace, but still you have to finish at a certain amount of time. So from that perspective, there are a lot of similarities, especially in Ashford, which is online, and other universities. But there are, again, different models depending on, are you going for a full university experience or are you looking for a specific skill set? I think the models are very different. And
thanks, Rohit. And this melds into another question raised by Vatsala. The drawback that she sees is even though the Udacity courses are self-paced, it's still time-bound. And if you don't finish in time, you're not able to continue the degree or course. So, and you're supposed to enroll again. Perhaps it costs to re-enroll. And this may be a question for Naren. Do you think this might change in future?
Yeah, we're exploring various ways. I'll also put this on the chat. We're actually exploring various ways to, make sure that people learn the skills and that also this graduation per se. I mean, the reason why these courses are time bound is at some level, right? If it also ties into skill competency, right? If somebody's taking, like the timing of these courses are based on what we believe is the appropriate amount of time needed to learn those skills. And if somebody is taking way more time than that, then they're probably either, it needs to be addressed in some way. That said, I think the fees is a completely orthogonal part of it, which we are working on addressing. So Vatsala, happy to, I'll give you my email, naren@udacity.com, happy to discuss and share.
I'll connect you with Vatsala. And Vatsala is our president of our Michigan chapter. So, and Dr. Thomas Abram, who's another great person on our board at the national level. He's also the president of Gopio. He has a question. Will there be a head-on competition between top universities and online education? I think the answer is yes, but your thoughts, Rohit?
Yeah, so back in the day when I was doing my, looking for a master's program, I was looking at US News and all to look at what the ratings are for different universities. Then I think all of a sudden now we have ratings for online universities as well. And that rating list is very different than the traditional list of established universities. So as more and more students get their education online, I think the competition will really going to heat up there because all these universities are after the same audience, same set of students. So they are going to focus a lot more, and definitely there's no doubt there's going to be much more competition there.
Right. A question from Anil Desai, I believe, is on, do you have some course connected with medical industry using technology? As I'm sure a lot of this information is available online as well, but what you want to comment? Naren, I think I heard you talk about healthcare.
Yeah, so we're offering our new nano degree on AI for healthcare. That's our first foray into
That's AI for healthcare.
AI.
What is the general medical profession?
Not yet. So yeah, we'll eventually get there, because that's clearly, in general, healthcare medicine is a good area of interest. Right now, it's on AI for health. As a company, we tend to focus a bit more on the tech side of
Got it.
domains. So.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. And again, you all of us on this call, including the speakers and moderators, are engineers and technologists, so we understand how these things go. So not many medical professionals typically attend our sessions, but
I just want to share one interesting data fact. This was from, I'm just sharing it because, technology is, this is from Dr. Eric Topol. He's a very famous cardiologist, the one I spoke about. So he was sharing that just by analyzing one's resting heart rate, right, you can predict so many problems, right? So there is a lot that technology can do in every space, right? It's actually, he's actually saying when things like, heart attacks and blood sugar and so on, just by analyzing this. So clearly technology can help in a big way, even in the field of medicine.
Great, thank you. Back to you, Romy.
Yeah, I think we're
out of time, right?
Yeah, we're out of time. Let's do a couple more minutes left. I'll let you wrap it up.
Okay, if you can move the thing to see where we are. Okay, so obviously we are doing this for the benefit of our members, and at the same time, I welcome all the questions from non-members and guests as well. There are a couple of polling things that I want to get through very quickly in the next 30 seconds. So again, in terms of what kind of topics would you be interested in, if you could click on that, and you can click multiple things. So whether we've been thinking about topics at the intersection of multiple industries, but of course with the technology bent of flavor, because we are from Silicon Valley and technology is in our DNA. So we want to see how our members who are not from the Silicon Valley, and given this, we are making it available to every member of ASEI, irrespective of the location. We want to cater our next events to your taste. So please take a moment. I'll leave it up for another 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I think I'm getting a very good sense here. I'll end the poll now. You can see how there is interest in AI, robotics, and disruptive technologies. And of course, we will talk about it in our next sessions as we plan our events. So, all right, there is one more thing, and of course, it is there. Romy, if you can go back to the previous slide. Yeah, so we would definitely want to involve more folks into our family here. And, we want to conduct one more poll here. And while I talk, please take a moment to respond if you would like to get involved as a volunteer or want to serve on a board of directors. And if that's the case, send me an email, piyushventures@gmail.com. And if you want to explore the ASEI Corporate Awards program, that's how ASEI works with corporates. Do write to me as well. And if you are able to help us with sponsorships and membership, great. So as I said earlier, we have different chapters with different themes. We have a Seattle chapter, we have a San Diego chapter, and SoCal chapter. But the most active chapter has been Michigan chapter, who has been organizing this since inception. And in the Silicon Valley chapter, we've, at least 2020, we've been more active than in previous years. But we continue to serve our K-12 students and high schoolers, as well as university students as our student members, because we want to sow the right seeds of in the next generation. So encourage you to join hands with us. So if you can move on, Romy. All right, so some other events that we have upcoming. We have, as I said, talked about whether it is 5G and the impact of 5G on the industries, and AI robotics. And we will also do an event on career moves from engineer to entrepreneur. And then whether it is PortTech first or whether it is the banking and fintech and insurtech event, we will conceive those events and invite all of you to come back. First of all, thank you to all the speakers,
Yes.
Naren, Preetha, Rohit, and to my friend Amrish for moderating this session. Thank you for doing this, and for all of you to take the time on this weekend and participating in this event live. We will make the slides and the recording available to the members. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of the weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you coming.